Hello, everyone. I had to come on tonight to talk about disclosures. So there's been a series of disclosures happening over the last several years, and it's just accelerating. It's getting more and more intense. We're discovering more and more information, and it can be a lot. And so what I want to talk about is the importance of our own personal work and how it relates to the disclosures that are happening on a cultural level, on a worldwide level. So what do I mean by disclosures? I mean that we are becoming aware of information that was always out there, but that we maybe didn't have the capacity to see or didn't have the capacity to handle. And I'm just going to run through a very quick list without going into a lot of detail about these particular things. But the Me Too movement, child sex slavery, and the information that's coming out about that right now. This is not a new thing. The information about our food and how harmful and toxic it is to us. I can't go into a public building without seeing a sign that there's some sort of carcinogen within that building. The environment, Monsanto and all the pesticides that are sprayed onto the foods that we eat, the GMO modifications, alien disclosure. The CIA released a document, it was either in 1984 or 1982, I think it was 84, that they published on the World Wide Web, talking about time travel, a whole bunch of other things as well. And that was around the time where they were hiring the Monroe Institute to train CIA operatives in non-local spying, non-local communication, astral travel, that sort of stuff. Remote viewing, that's the word for it. So there's all these kind of things, right? The financial system. We're noticing a lot around the financial system right now. Politics, we have an election coming up next year. Okay, so I don't want to get too deep into any of these singular topics. It's a lot just even to mention it. Just the weight of each of those topics can hang really heavy in the air, can hang really heavy in our consciousness. So I want to connect it back to our own personal work. So I've been working a lot lately with people on breaking cycles of karma, things that are coming back and creating the same experience over and over again in somebody's life. And it's really interesting that I started doing this because I was doing a lot of more of like calibration work before this, tuning into frequencies, creating different realities. But for whatever reason, I became aware that this is what was needed right now during this time for me as well as for others. And what I'm noticing in terms of the connection to the disclosures that are happening on a worldwide level is that when we're lying to ourselves about something, that's essentially when we say, I don't want to take a look at a belief that I hold. I don't want to be responsible for a certain set of beliefs that is creating my reality. I don't want to feel the disappointment that is naturally coming to me around this karmic cycle that continues to recur over and over again. So there's a level of not disclosing to ourselves what it is that we are actually already aware of. So it's subconscious. And Abraham talks about this a lot. I love Abraham. But they talk about how everything's subconscious and it comes into the awareness and it goes back down. It comes into the awareness and it goes back down. So you may have some things coming into your awareness, but you may not acknowledge them or take responsibility for them. So those are two totally different states of being, right? One, you're kind of barely aware of it and it just kind of goes back under the surface. And then you say, why am I experiencing the same thing over and over again? And you feel a victim. You feel a victim to it. You feel a victim of it. In the same way that people may tend to think that they're a victim of the circumstances that are happening in the broader reality when they look at the facts and the evidence and all of the information out there about what's happening can be very, very overwhelming. But bringing it back to our own work, right? Our own discovery of our own responsibility. When we do become aware of those cyclical thoughts that surface and arise occasionally, like the one I talked about recently in the video that I posted a few days ago, which was just very simply, you know, a habit of blaming others for feeling negative emotion and wanting that to be different so that I could feel happy. And underneath it was this idea that I needed to save people. And a sadness that if they didn't get saved by me, that they would never be saved, or that they would be lost, or that I wasn't good enough to save them, and all of this. So that's an example of something that I didn't want to see that came to the surface, that then as I became aware of it, it allowed me to not be the victim of people feeling anger around me, people feeling frustration, people feeling stuck. Those were the emotions that I couldn't deal with. I could deal with sadness. I could deal with some of the other emotions in a better way, right? But like that anger emotion was something that I really had less of a tolerance for. But when I got to the root of that, it dissolved. It simply dissolved. And what is left now is compassion and love. So when we do our inner work, we allow ourselves to step out of the victimhood and into the seat of the creator. We take our power back, and in doing so, we empower others to do the same, but we also feel less impacted by I'll call it quote unquote evil intentions of these really rigid structures. And I think from a spiritual perspective, as you're awakening, you look at that and you say, that is evil. You know, when you're looking at what's happening in Israel right now, that is evil, right? It's how can somebody do that? But yet within our own consciousness, we are doing the very same thing on a different level. And there are so many layers to this. There's such a depth to how there's no limit to how deeply we can take responsibility for our own space. And the more we do that, the more space we can hold for what others are doing and trying to do to us, even if it is ill-intentioned, then it doesn't feel ill-intentioned to us because we know that it's coming from a place of unconsciousness. So I hope that this helps whoever needed to hear this, whoever needed to just know that you are not alone in carrying the weight and the heaviness of all of the things that are happening in the world right now. And that just simply by attending to your own healing, you will help to heal the world. And I know that that sounds cliche, but it's true. I'm sending you guys so much love. I'd love to hear your insights, your feedback. See you guys soon.